Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Money Goddess podcast. I am your host, Jasmine Thomas Bridges, and I'm so excited to be here with you today live. I am on YouTube recording this podcast and TV episode. It is going to be something that you girlies are going to love. And even if you are not a girly, I think this is going to help you boost your productivity, and your overall success in your life. So let's go ahead and get into it. We are talking about how to become more feminine as a recovering overachiever. So I want to be very transparent with you all. I personally have struggled with being an overachiever, and I have been that way my entire life. Like, I literally just it was just something natural to me to always be super productive, go past my goals. That's just who I have been. And when you are that type of person, sometimes it can be challenging to turn that off because you might feel like you are falling behind or you're a failure, or it's just all types of thoughts go into your head. And I want to talk about this because I recognize that I am not the only person who struggles with this, especially maybe in the last few years. I feel like femininity has been finally like put on the forefront as something important, something worthwhile. I would say like from 2010 to like maybe around 2020, being a boss babe was like put at the forefront. And it was like, no, I'm a boss. I'm competing with men. I don't really see myself as being, a subservient, or, I'm equal. And it's not to say that we are not equal. It is to say though that men have different roles than we have as women, and there is nothing wrong with it. Like, I want to be very clear. I accept that. And I think that it is a beautiful thing because it gives us balance. And as a woman, we should not be allowing ourselves to compete with a man because we want to prove ourselves to society, to the world, that we're worthy. Society relies on this patriarchal system, and the patriarchy is not something that is in our favor as women, as feminine goddesses. Like, we should be focusing in on understanding how important we are as the center of this earth, the center of life. We create life. We were given that sacred gift because we carry such a big, important role. I don't care how much money that a man makes, how many hours they work, how much they hustle, they still can't do the things that we do as women naturally, which is to create life, not only literally, but figuratively, spiritually. Like, that is just what we do. And I think that we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. A lot of people don't understand the magnitude of what we do as women. And even if it's something soft, something gentle, the influence that women have is beyond me. Like, I even look at my husband, the past almost 4 years that we have been married, and I see how much he has changed over the years. And I have not been trying to like forcefully change him. It's subtle things. Like, this man literally eats totally different. He communicates differently. He works differently. Like, everything I know and he has shared has been influenced by me. Even his family says, "Oh my gosh, like, he's so different in a positive way. And that is because of the influence that I have in it. And it's that what I heard growing up in church. And I do want to share this too. So the church that I went to was more so, it was in favor of the patriarchal system, but more than anything, my particular church was big on a gentle, quiet spirit. Now, take it how you want. Some people feel like a gentle, quiet spirit is not something that they really want to be a part of because they feel like it is diminishing the voice of the woman. But I take a gentle, quiet spirit as a woman being more of like a Holy Spirit figure. That's how I see it. I see the woman as being someone that shares things softly. She has very soft responses. She doesn't allow things to really like frustrate or get to her. She's the voice of reason, the rationale. She's just herself. She's playful, she's loving, but she's also very stern and direct when she needs to be. And so that's why you have the light and the dark feminine energy. It's not all just, oh my gosh, I'm playful, I'm fun, I do whatever. It is also, I set boundaries, I have standards, and I am going to dig deeper into this. This is probably going to be a two-part podcast episode because I really want to dig in deep and give you all a true experience of what it is like to really use that feminine energy for good, and making sure that you are not only balancing those energies, because I want to be very clear when I'm talking about recovering as an overachiever, it doesn't mean that you won't use any of your masculine energy. For me, where I am in my life, I use my feminine energy probably around 60 to 70% of the time. It depends on what I'm doing and where I'm at in doing it. So in my marriage, I have high feminine energy. Like that's a strong 80%. I let my husband pay for everything. I just sit back. Of course, I have greater organizational skills, and I share what I think needs to be said, things of that nature, but I really kind of take a back seat. When it comes to nurturing my son, I take more of a forward masculine approach because I'm making sure that he is disciplined, he has everything he needs, and I create it in a way that is sustainable so that then I can get back into my feminine energy. When it comes to work, I used to be a lot more masculine when it came to work. Now the femininity is off the charts, and it has truly benefited me. And as you can see, you can balance your structure of energy based on what you are doing and where you are in your life. As time evolves, you will find yourself, if you do things properly and set up the right masculine structures. And I've talked about that in previous podcast episodes, but you'll hear me bring it up again because a lot of people talk about femininity, but they don't understand that femininity cannot exist without that structure of the masculine. So for me, especially in business, I gave myself the masculine structure. And how I was able to give myself that masculine structure was I did work extremely hard. I put in the time and the energy, and I created all of these different streams of income, whether they were active or they were passive, right? I used that momentum to build me up. But I do want you all to understand that once I built that momentum, it was time for me to go back into my femininity. It was time for me to relax. It was time for me to recover and unwind. And in doing so, I was able to really allow things to unfold, Allow things to multiply, trust in the divine, receive, right? What everyone wants to do is to continuously knock on the door. My beautiful friend and YouTuber, Lori Luck, she was on our show a little bit earlier in the year, and well, earlier this podcast season, let me say it like that. And she recently, I remember, using the Bible verse of ask, seeking, and knocking, and that is the masculine structure. But I want to be very clear: we only need to knock so many times, and the Holy Spirit, or the feminine energy, mother goddess, will let us know when we need to knock. Sometimes a lot of us, especially as we are recovering overachievers, we're knocking on the door over and over and over and over, and we don't understand why we're not getting results. And don't confuse this with consistency. Yes, we should still be consistent, right? But we're trying to push ourselves and force ourselves into something. If it hasn't happened yet, it's not supposed to. Listen to that again. If it hasn't happened yet, it's not supposed to. You are where you need to be right now. And I want you to embrace where you are. Overachievers are always sometimes so forward thinking that they don't embrace the now. 3 months ago, I created some subliminals around that area of being happy now, being grateful, loving where I am, because I was always programming myself for the future and I wasn't really fully embodying what I had already created. Who I am now, because of that overachiever, is well past what I even imagined. Like, I'm not even living my dream, I'm living past my dreams. Like, I didn't even know that this would exist, right? Don't get me wrong, I might have had plans or thoughts around some of the things that I've done, but this is more than I could have ever imagined. And when you are in the here and now, as opposed to always projecting into the future, you can really reap the benefits and rewards that you have put that work into. So, I want to talk to you about a couple things that I think you should know, especially if you are someone who always feels like I have to be productive, I have to hit my checklist. If I don't do all of these things, then that means I'm not on track for where I'm supposed to be. This is a message. This episode is for you. Like, I want to be very clear. You are going to find so many gems. If you haven't already, in the things that I've said, this is really going to help you propel forward. Number one, you are worthy because you exist. I'm going to say that again. You are worthy because you exist. I know that society, even our parents, our schools we attend, they never say this to us. They never give us that love and that attention that lets us know that no matter what, we are worthy. We are always measured by our performance in most cases. And I know that was the case for me. So I remember being in the first grade, and this is when my father was living. He passed away when I was 9. And I had all good grades in everything except I had a C. This was January 1999, I think. And I recall, my dad being like, look, you need to pull that C up. And I was crushed. And I was crushed because my parents never really told me, you know, no matter what, I still love you. Like, they never really said that. They never really propelled that. And that was something that, even though it was a good thing that my father, was hard on me about that, because I never, had to see ever again in life. But it pushed me over the edge to where I thought if I performed well that they would love me and that they would accept me and they would like be proud of me. But that's not healthy. And now, as a recovering overachiever with my son, I literally tell him all the time, son, like, you are everything. You are enough. Like, I literally tell him there's nothing that you could do that would make me stop loving you. And I think every parent, every person should always share that with the people in their lives. Now, don't get me wrong, we have to have boundaries. But what I'm saying is that there is a lot of not enoughness walking around here. There are people who are on all of these platforms, they have all of this success, they're showing you everything, and you can almost feel the not enoughness. I literally have had to stop myself from doing a lot of things because I recognized I wasn't doing those things because it really aligned to me. I was trying to make myself do that because I didn't feel like I was doing enough. I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm focused in on this podcast. Like, the Money Goddess podcast is everything of my energy in my She's Worthy platform. Now, do I have other things that exist in the business? Yes. But the only thing that is getting my full undivided attention is this podcast. That means that I have had to stop showing up on other platforms. I have had to zone in to make sure that this is at 100%. Even in my educational consulting, I have had to say, you know what? I only want to focus on literacy. That is it. Anything outside of literacy, pre K through 5, I'm no longer available for. And what I also had to do was say, you know what? I'm going to stop getting more and more certifications. So in literacy, I have at least 12 to 15 different certifications. Enough is enough. If I keep going at this rate, it is not going to push me to where I really want to go and want to be. So I have had to really get to that point where I recognize, like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. If you are finding yourself always doing something because you're trying to prove yourself, or you're trying to look a certain way, be a certain way, you have to understand that you are enough as you are. You've done enough. If you do nothing else for the rest of your life, you've done enough. And that is how I truly feel. Another thing I want you to really think about is taking the pressure off of yourself. If you are a recovering overachiever, you probably have a lot of pressure that you feel on your shoulders. And I think some of it comes from you potentially being maybe around certain people. You might have societal standards, or it could be your own standards that you hold for yourself. And I really want you to think about, do you take on other people's energies? Do you take on like the responsibility of a lot of people? That is something that I used to do. It's a lot better than it has been, but I was taking on so many responsibilities where I felt like I needed to do XYZ in order to make either someone happy or someone proud, or to help this person go forward. But the reality of it is, the only person that I have to show up for is my son. because as a mother, it is my role and responsibility to give him the best life possible. And the only way that I can do that is if I show up for myself and make sure that I am where I need to be mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, right? I have taken that pressure off, especially too in societal standards. So when I have lower like work weeks in my educational consulting, this is where I notice that the overachiever in me feels like, oh shoot, I'm not doing a whole lot. I must not be worthy. I must be like, terrible. Or these are the thoughts that come in because society says we should be working 40 plus hours a week. I was reading this article, and I think the company was in Norway, if I'm not mistaken. And they said that they invest in the US because the US has a lot more ambition than they have in Europe. Like they would never put a business in Europe because Europe has boundaries because they care about their families, they're spending time with their loved ones. But they want to work in the US. And that made me almost feel cringe. It was cringeworthy. It was very cringeworthy. And as you all know, like I have traveled to Paris recently in May of 2024. And then years before that, I had studied abroad in London and student taught there. And the fact that these people want to invest because we overwork ourselves is insane. Like, this just goes to show that we as a society need to relax. We need to relax. I think about places in the Caribbean where they shut down at a certain time every single day. They have certain hours where, no, we're going to go home and we're going to take naps. Like, we're not sitting here and focusing in on like all the different things, including like um having to go back to work. We're like after lunch, like we're gonna have longer lunch breaks, different things like that. And it's just a reality that like we really need to rethink how we show up in the world and how that affects us. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. Some people have different work schedules, work lives. But for me, all the things that I worked for, which were time freedom, and now that I have it, I'm still like looking around like, oh shoot, like should I be doing a little bit more? It like and I have been a full-time entrepreneur for years, but I still sometimes feel that societal pressure. And then I even sometimes wonder if my own standards of I have to be doing XYZ in order to be worthy, like that is insane. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we feel like that should be the standard? Because for me, the truth is, I as just honestly, I have structured my life to where, especially in She's Worthy, I'm really only working an hour a week, but I'm able to bring in so much passive income that takes care of so many things. And even in my educational business, I don't really have to put out maybe 10 hours each week, and I get to have amazing fruit from that. So you'll notice I'm really working a lot less and I'm making so much more. And a lot of my friends that use this feminine energy, they have the same type of, if not better, results. So I know that this works, but as we are recovering and we're healing, it can be challenging. It can make us want to, do a little bit more and show up a little bit more and, be on this rigid schedule. And I have to do this and I have to do that. I am telling you, And I want you to tell yourself, if you are getting stellar results from less work, that's more than enough. Why would you grind your gears and try to put this work into more than it needs to be? And I even think about, with my own husband, he works a lot of hours every single day. And I look at where he is headed in terms of his longevity in his career and how it impacts his body, his stress, all of those things that I'm looking at, and I recognize like I could never work the way that he does. I could never feel like this is a good lifestyle for me. And what's crazy is that he doesn't either. He doesn't feel like this is really working for him. And although he loves what he does, he recognizes, like, this is not a lifelong sustainability. And I hope that the world begins more and more to go back to that feminine era where we, were productive when we needed to be productive. And then we go in and we hibernate like, the ants do. We work really, really hard in the summer. We show up, we use all of our energy because that's a normal, natural thing for us as humans. And then in the fall and winter, we start to go in and, we spend time with each other, we rest, we recover, and then we come back out in the spring and the summer. And that's just a normal thing. But our society has put us on 24/7. You guys have to realize, literally, a grocery store only closes one day a year. In Walmart is all I can think of. One day out of the year does Walmart close. That is crazy. There are no standards and no boundaries for being off. And then when we're off, it's like we're addicts. We're recovering addicts because we're always on. And I want to let you know, if this is you, I'm going to give you some more steps in the second half of this particular episode so that you can really feel like your most fulfilled and productive selves. Like, that's the most important part, is that you're feeling fulfilled and you're actually getting things done that matter, as opposed to just checking off a list, because those lists are not everything. It doesn't determine your value. It doesn't determine your worth. It doesn't mean that you are better because you did more. It's time to really step into our power and see how amazing we really are, just because we are human beings, not human doings.